His headsets whenever we go there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, I downloaded Michael's book on Kindle and read it, and I don't think there is a more complete analysis of the business factors affecting the ad agency industry that I've ever seen. Of course, I'm a creative director, not a general manager, so I do not know, that side of the business deeply. But it's a very compelling story, and I was very lucky to reach him and be able to get him to come and talk to us. So Michael Farmer, former Bain and Boston Consulting Group consultant, started his own firm more than 25 years ago, focused on an industry probably you would never focus on today, advertising agencies, because no one would be able to afford to pay your fees, and is also a professor at CCNY in their marketing department, and author. Please read the book, Madison Avenue Manslaughter. So, begin. Thank you.
Peter, thank you. I'm your entertainment today. I don't know how entertaining this is going to be. Depends on how close you are to the industry. I never expected to be an author. I never expected to be giving talks like this. I'm really a full-time management consultant, and I spent a lot of years at Boston Consulting Group and Bain, where because we were doing strategy consulting and we didn't work for companies that competed with each other, every time we did a study, it was the first time in an industry. And the skills that were required of any of the consultants were, you had to know what data to get in order to figure things out, and you had to use that data quickly to establish some expertise. And usually it involved analyzing pricing and cost behavior and competitors and technology and other things to help companies understand where are they today and where is it likely to go if nothing changes in the way things are managed, and how good could it be if you did some different things. And really the whole inside secret to doing more consulting work for clients like that were to get the management excited about the growth potential if certain different things were done. Now, I started my firm in London, Farmer & Company, in 1990 after leaving Bain, and I did normal Bain-type consulting with a number of people, and then I got a call from Ogilvy, UK, where I had met the people, and I had met Martin Sorrells just a couple of years before when I was young in Bain. And they said, look, this was Mike Walsh, who was the head of Ogilvy UK at the time, said, look, we got bought by Martin in '89. This is now '92. We're not making any money. We've had a recession in the UK. We're not making any money. We've done everything. We've moved our offices. We've cut our training. We got rid of our research library, and we did this, that, and the other. We're still not making money, and we think we need a strategy consultant to understand what's going on in our business that either we don't understand or don't measure or something. And I said, okay, but I don't understand. I don't know anything about your business, so I'm not an expert. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend that you are a factory that makes ads. And I won't use that language with anybody. But I will gather the type of data that I would if you were a factory that made ads. And I'll need to know, how much stuff you make, how many ads you make, and of what type, and how many people it takes, and on each client, and what you get paid for it. And then I'd like 5 years. I'm going to develop 5 years of that data back, 5 years, and then we'll see what's happened. Is the factory running differently or something like that? Anyhow, oh, that's a great idea. Do not use the word factory with a creative operation. It will offend people. So I said fine, and we went in, and the first thing I wanted to do was to find the person who could tell me how much stuff they made, how much the factory produced. There wasn't anybody. In fact, the data didn't exist. So we spent 7 weeks reconstructing 1 year's worth of what are the briefs they worked on, what types of ads, how many teams did they have on it, what was the rework rate. We found that in job jackets, you know, because they would hire photographers on a print shoot, and they would have production companies for television and so forth and so on. It took us 7 weeks to reconstruct the scope of work. Once we had the workload and we knew the fees, then we could look at price, which is really, this is a key thing. Price is fee divided by work. And you need some way of creating a homogeneous unit of work, right? It can't just be per TV ad, because they didn't warrant TV ads. And all ads aren't the same size. But you can get price and you can get productivity, which is how much work does a creative have to crank out on the different clients. Anyway, a lot of insights came out once we had the work. And I thought, this is great. This is one office. We figured it out. Oh, by the way, what was the answer? The executive creative directors were putting 3, 4, and 5 creative teams on every single brief, unbeknownst to anybody else. And they were going through 3, 4, and 5 complete rounds of rework, because they'd have 10 ideas that they had to get down to 1. And I went to Walsh at the end and I said, I think I figured out why you have 52 creatives and 75 account people and 40 production people and you're not making any money. It's because of the way you're allocating resources. And we figured out that if you put just one team on everything, except for the new stuff, product launches and like, you put 2 teams on those and 1, you only need 35 creatives and 50 account people and 40 production people, and you'd make a 15% margin, up from 0. And well, I said, excuse my language, those fuckers. And he met his executive creative directors who had been beating on him for years. I need more people, I need more people, everybody's busy, we're doing this, we're doing that. And it really was that they had 3, 4, and 5 creative teams on everything to create, to try to get the creative quality up, as if it weren't a business. And they knew full well that they weren't making any money. So he fired them, and he put someone in place that implemented what they then called the farmer system, meaning one creative team except in exceptional cases, cutting back on the rework and making profits. 1 year they went from 0 profit to 14 profit. And I thought, I've got a business. I'm going to be rich, really rich, because that's one office out of a couple hundred with Ogilvy. And then there's everybody else with thousands of offices, and we've cracked it. Okay, I'm not rich. And 25 years later, I am still reconstructing scopes of work. That is a fact. For Ogilvy and anybody else that hires me. And I have been pleading with agencies that they cannot continue to accept fees from clients without having some understanding of how much work they're doing. This is the only industry I've worked in 40 years that doesn't have a notion of price, because they don't know how much work they do. And this is without exception. I have analyzed 977 scopes of, reconstructed 977 scopes of work in my 25 years with my team. And so what I'm going to talk about today is, and show you the consequences of an undermanaged industry that's destroying itself. And interestingly enough, that may happen very quickly. We are at an inflection point. I don't know how many of you follow holding company share prices, but WPP reached its peak share price in 2015, and it's 30% down already. And there's nothing coming down the road that will buoy it up. Now, We all know Wall Street. Wall Street loves growth, and it rewards it by higher share prices. So you have to show organic growth, and you have to show growth in margins, and then you get rewarded. And Martin Sorrell's been rewarded very heavily. He paid himself $100 million 2 years ago. But that, I believe, I think we've seen the end of holding company share price growth. And when it starts to go, who knows what the outcome could be. But I'm guessing that Wall Street will start to write, and analysts will start to write, the parts are worth more than the whole. What does a holding company add anyway? Let's break it up. They make money when things are broken up. They make money putting them together, and they make money breaking them up. They always make money. So I'm going to show you what the true economics, and I don't have a lot of slides, I've got about a dozen or so. I'm just going to briefly show you some of the data. I'm still a data hound. I still have to get data to support the fact that I can understand operations, and I've been tracking the data over 25 years now. What you're going to see is unique. It's in my book, but it's not data that any chief executive, at an agency could pull out and say, look what's happened to industry pricing. In fact, they largely ignore it. They're still talking about we need to be more creative. We need to get back to the basic values of David Ogilvy and that whole gang back in the 60s. They're still thinking that that's what clients want and need, and that still works. And it actually doesn't. Other things work today. So let me just go through this and let's see.
Just open the PowerPoint.
Yes. Or reopen. There we go. There we go. I'm going to just reopen this. Okay, so I'm going to call this the undermanaged and deteriorating advertising industry. And that's what it is. It is undermanaged. I'm saying agency executives are not dealing with their economics. What they are doing for the most part is delivering profits to the holding company. And they are totally focused on maintaining levels of revenue. So, and that is causing a deterioration in their operations. Interestingly, I love Moneyball because the premise of Moneyball in the baseball thing is that there's a way of running the business, which is the baseball managers, the players, the scouts, and the owners. And they have a certain concept to how you win games and how you spend money in order to win games. And then around 2000 or so, Billy Beane of the A's, who had no money and who was a bit of a data hound himself, discovered sabermetrics, which is a way of analyzing what really causes runs. And actually, people, ball players that might be fat and couldn't run and couldn't field, but could draw a lot of walks, really helped all teams win. And one of the things that Michael said in his book was that baseball's executive preference for their opinions over hard data, because by the way, the people that invented sabermetrics could not sell it or give it away to ball teams. So the preference for opinions over hard data was at least in part due to a lifetime of experience with fishy data. And I thought, that is exactly what I've been dealing with, because we'll find that agencies don't know how to measure their performance, even their economic performance, other than through profit margin. And they feel that they are successful in doing what they do. So, whatever fishy data they've got is all they use, even though there are other data sets that can help them. The game of advertising is a complicated game that involves Wall Street, customers who buy stuff, the creative and the media agencies that do the work, holding companies who largely own creative and media agencies and have their eye on Wall Street, the clients who are hiring the media and the creative agencies and have their eyes on Wall Street, who always want growth. Wall Street wants growth from the clients, it wants growth from the holding companies. The holding companies want growth from the creative and media agencies, and the clients want to cut their fees in order to get growth. So I mean, right off the bat, you've got a conflict between what the holding companies want and need and what the clients are prepared to pay for. In addition, you've got publishers, online publishers. You've got people who follow the fortunes of the industry, whether they're security analysts or journalists. And you've got management consultants, Accenture, Deloitte, IBM, PwC, who've been aggressively buying creative and media agencies. Accenture is the largest ad agency in the world. It's bigger than the 4 holding companies put together. Wow. And they are still dissed by creative agencies who say, they're not creative. We own creativity. They're not creative. They're bean counters. They're ex-accountants. They're ex-systems people. They can try. We're not worried about them. Watch out. The game of advertising with all of these players is trying to maximize shareholder value for each of them. And in doing so, there are conflicts among themselves that that create like an 8-man show where they're not pulling on the same oar at all anymore. What's complicated this is largely the holding companies, which came into existence in the 80s, and who had a great run for all the years in which they could squeeze the excess costs out of agencies. That was like the Ogilvy where they were doing 3, 4, 5 teams on everything. That's the way everybody ran. So holding companies from the mid-'80s until 2004 were squeezing fat out, and that was great, and it was driving up their share price. But after 2004, they were cutting out muscle. And that's the only way they could grow. That's the only way they could grow. And so since 2004, there's been a completely different change. In addition, in background, we've had the explosive growth in direct marketing, in digital and social marketing, and some changes in television. First cable, and then what's going on today, the cable cutters and the Netflixes and HBOs and the Hulus and others that are bypassing the system. And there was the 2008 crash. And since 2008, advertisers haven't done very well. PG, Nestle, Unilever, American Express, the banks, the beer companies. And in background, you've had all the media fragmentation. In addition, you've had the demographic change to millennials, nowadays generation, and a very different generation. Like, no millennial would ever drink Budweiser. I have millennial students that I teach at CCNY once a week, and I'm always kidding them. Who's ever had a Big Mac here? And they kind of look at me. They go to Shake Shack. They'll wait in the line. Anybody ever drunk Budweiser? We drink craft beers, Professor Barber. They're special, and they're very, I don't know, delicate or something, but they're different, but they're huge. They buy differently. Anyway, a lot of stuff has gone on in the background that has caused difficulties for large advertisers. They want and need growth and does that bothering you? It bothers me. They want and need growth and profitability to satisfy Wall Street. But because they're not growing, what they're doing is cutting costs. And it's been highly publicized this year that P&G is taking $750 million out of the media spend. And they're cutting their agencies by 50%, and they're going to take another $400 million out there. And they're bragging about, that's what marketing now, Mark Pritchard. This is what we're doing. Like, this is real strategy. Well, it isn't. It's a total failure.
Isn't he doing it though in the name of brand safety? It's like cutting.
No, he's saying digital and social doesn't work, and every time they've cut out a huge amount of that, and it didn't make a difference. What he's really saying, since they're under pressure from Norman Feltz and all the other investors, what they're doing is they're adding to shareholder value by cutting costs. That's what it is. Everything else is smoke and mirrors.
He's also given more, he's given up more control to procurement because that was
Oh, absolutely.
And that's killed most of the relationships.
A theme of what the advertisers, what CMOs have been doing in the last 10 years is turning more and more over to procurement. Why? Procurement can deliver shareholder value. How do they do it? They slash costs. So if you're a CMO today and you don't know how to spend money to deliver growth, you're not really sure digital and social deliver what they say they're doing. You've got agencies, which I'll show you, have been significantly weakened, and their value added has been diminished over time. Then you puff up your chest and you make a big deal about the fact that you are cutting costs and rationalizing. Well, you have to say, well, what the hell were you doing the last 10 years? Why did you quadruple the number of agencies you worked with? Why did you so heavily invest in digital and social and discover that it wasn't working? So, you know, Pritchard said just a couple of weeks ago, 2018 is the year we take back control. And we're going to strip away everything that isn't pure creative. That means they're going to do internal stuff. They're going to be doing programmatic media buying. They're going to be in-house. They're going to be dictating what production houses will be used for, you know, taking production away from the agencies. They'll be doing creative stuff internally as well. Well, that ain't great for the holding companies. You know, that is not good for them at all. And guess what? I'm going to pick on Martin because he's very visible. He's got the largest holding company, and he's out there talking all the time. Well, holding companies should be delivering client results. That's what their job is. Now, that isn't what they ever say they're doing. What they say is that they're growing sales and profits. And their agencies say, we're creative. You don't really hear too much talk about our purpose in life is to deliver client results, but it should be. But what they're doing is they're cutting costs. And he said right after his fourth quarter earnings came out a couple of weeks ago, our focus, greater cost efficiency. Let me tell you what, that's all it's been for 20 years.
Yeah.
That's all it's been for 30 years. They have done nothing but give aggressive budgets to their agencies. Higher growth than the agencies think they can achieve, and fatter margins. And in the early days, he was asking for 10% margins. He's now asking for 20% margins. Our focus, greater cost efficiency. We're breaking down silos. We're consolidating, meaning he's taking PR agencies and merging them together to get rid of overhead and top management. He's done the same thing in media. It's sort of we're going to consolidate and create a fair amount of organizational disruption. So we're going to break down the silos, consolidate creative ad buying strategy, public relations businesses. We're strong. The most successful agency groups are those who offer simplicity and flexibility. Wrong. That's not what is going to grow client results. It's brain power.
Yeah.
And a business mindedness and an understanding of why can't we sell to millennials? How do we compete with Amazon and other e-commerce? How do we deal with the changing ethnic demographics of the country? It's a lot of things. Why is Tide not growing? Why Pampers? Oh, what do we have to do? And you know, the same would be true for Budweiser or other brands like that. Or should we just cover advertising and take our losses? But this is not where it comes from. And he's trying to reassure Wall Street that all of this cost-saving stuff is going to keep his, is going to make up for the fact that he doesn't have organic growth. Does not have organic growth in sales. Now, how about the ad agencies? They should deliver results, but if you know agencies, they talk about being creative and nimble, and you know, those are the words. What they're actually doing is they're actually cutting costs because the holding company requires it, and they're also providing, out of fear, unlimited service for a fixed fee. And they've completely given up controlling fees at all. Their clients tell them what they're going to spend. And procurement's got all these little tricks for it. I know we gave you 8 million last year, it's going to be 6 this year, we're having a tough year, but that's what benchmarks show. And so they're accepting that, even though for 20 years their workloads have been growing. Now I measure this because I measure scopes of work, maybe the only nut in the world that does, but I go into agencies and measure scopes of work. So I know that scopes of work over 25 years have been growing at 2.5% per year compound. And fees have been declining at 2.5% compound. And I'll show you what that adds up to over 25 years. But the other thing that's happened, that as the agencies have chased digital and social, because that's the other thing they say, we're going to be more digital, we're going to be more social, we're going to be relevant, those millennials out there. Okay, 1992, an agency with 50 creatives would have done, and I measured this, okay, 385 briefs, ads, TV, radio, print. I have a client now, 50 creatives, in the same group, owned by the same people. They did 14,750 deliveries last year for lower price.
Is that digital deliveries, like more variability?
Yeah, that's Facebook. But you know, Facebook posts, Yahoo, Google, email marketing.
Right, but just to be careful, we're talking about fractional deliveries. We're talking about somebody who makes
Absolutely, and you know, one of these is not the same as one
Well,
of
that's
these.
what I'm saying.
However, I've got a system. I have a system that allows me to measure how much work the 14,750 is, and what the relationship between the fees are in this, and how many standard units a creative has to generate. Okay, back here, and let's just call it TV equivalents. I call them scope metric units, my unit, but they're really TV equivalents. So here, this would have been under 50. This would be 300. So that a creative would have done 2.2 TV equivalents in the old days, and they are doing 7 or 8 now. So there's been
The challenge with the apples and oranges piece of this is that the digital has changed the nature of what we're using. Right? So
absolutely.
So I would
they're
ask
finding out. Well,
if you go back to 50 people, is it 50 people working 250 hours a week? I don't think so. It's 50 people who can save 50-hour work.
yeah, but they're grinding out a lot of stuff, and they're not doing a lot of strategy. That's the thing is, here you could work at a leisurely pace, and you had time because you were doing a TV thing, and it might take a couple months. Here, if you actually do the math, with 50 creatives, a creative is cranking out 284 pieces per year, and that's, you know, one a day.
The other side is that good copy, whether it's digital or in classic media, is still good copy. You need the same amount of time to write a headline in digital as you do
Yeah.
in
So,
media.
I mean, I like to think, this was French restaurant, this is French restaurant back here, and this is McDonald's. That's what's going on, and that's a very important shift in culture.
So how are you measuring shareholder value, the creation of shareholder value?
Oh, well, that's ultimately,
How are you measuring that?
shareholder value, well, I'll take Wall Street's definition. That
Right.
I'm not talking about whether this stuff generates client growth. The fact of the matter is, clients are not growing. And clients are perceiving that this is all not working. And that's why they're cutting spend. And that's why agency relationships have gone from, on average, 15 plus years here to 3 years here. Why? Why do they look for a new agency every 3 years? Because they're not getting what they need. And they are, the Deloittes and Accentures, and Accenture said last week, we're in the business of saving CMOs jobs. So they're focused on making the senior executives successful. That means delivering growth. And the consulting firms, their DNA is much more, why aren't you growing? What are the reasons for it? What's your starting point? What do we have to do to get it going again? That's just the way they think, it's the way they train people, it's the way they sell their business. Agencies today, under the pressure of doing all this work and needing to deliver growing profits to the holding company, will take any piece of revenue that's available. I met with a finance director of a headquarters holding company agency today, this morning before coming here. He's an old friend. We worked together some time ago, and he said, I've been in this job, finance director in New York, I've been in this job 6 years. The office is half the size it was. And if it were up to me, I'd get rid of all the production we're doing. I'd get rid of all this stuff and give it to the people that are good at doing that kind of high volume stuff. I would focus on doing more strategic and creative type of work. It would cut our revenue in half, but let me tell you, that's never going to happen because I am not allowed to give up a dollar of revenue. So they kind of get trapped by the holding companies, by the clients that are not performing, who are cutting what they pay the agencies, and the holding companies who are demanding more, that what they are getting paid for is declining in value added.
Your CMO tenure is also still right.
Oh, well, the CMOs are failing at their jobs, so their tenure is down.
And they're
3
no
years.
longer generalists that have better concept of integrated advertising.
And actually, I think a lot of CMOs are faking it right now because they get fired from a job, they get another job as a CMO. And the first thing they'll do is fire the incumbent agency. That buys them 18 months. It's like, well, we're getting a new agency and new strategy, et cetera. And then they bring them in at lower cost. That's good. And then they can brag about that sort of thing. And then after the 18 months, nothing really changes. And then they get fired, and they move on, and they hire a new agency, and the agency gets sacked when a new one comes in to replace. It's just a never-ending music.
Well, that's what happens with Cadillac. It'll be interesting. They just brought in a new CMO.
Deborah, I know very well.
Yeah, met her at the A&A.
I worked with Deborah Wall
That's not
at
gonna
Toyota and Chrysler and McDonald's.
Wow.
And now she's taken over Cadillac, which is a brand which has been losing share.
China was their only hope.
So we'll see what happens.
Then General Motors just brought in a whole new internal consulting organization to cross-channel strategy over markets.
We'll see what
We'll see
happens.
what
They
happens.
moved their marketing to New York to try to get away from
Right.
Detroit.
Right.
We'll see what Deborah does.
I
She's
hope
good.
she succeeds,
She's
but-
really good.
Well, advertising,
We'll see
a
what
brand campaign help sell cars. Right. I don't know.
The creative
That's
agencies, now this is a little unfair, but I have pulled off of the web Saatchi's, an agency I know quite well, what they say their purpose is. And they're still users. And so to be revered as the hothouse for world-changing creative ideas, one team, blah, blah, blah. Our greatest imaginable challenge is to transform our top 20 offices from good to great, to fill the world with love marks. Not a word about clients. It's about us. And that is kind of the general holding company culture, particularly if there was a great creative past as it was at Saatchi. They keep thinking, that's where our value is. That's what we have to get better at. When I was writing my book, Saatchi was a client of mine, and Kevin Roberts was my client. And he called me, I used to give him chapters to read. He called me in one day and he said, "Farmer, you got it completely wrong. You do not understand how an agency's work. And you think it's all org charts and accountabilities and keeping track of scopes of work." He said, an agency has to be run like an anthill, where every ant knows his job and has the freedom to do it. And there is no CEO of an anthill. And he said, I put it in the book with his permission. He didn't have any reservations to say, the leader creates the culture in which people can do what they want. And if you hire talented people, they'll be doing the right thing. And I said, well, Kevin, how's that working for you? Because We're down 30% in headcount in the last 3 years because of client cuts and fees. Because your folks are not negotiating fees. Your folks don't even know how much work they're doing. And you're short people. It's not working. I mean, if there's a forest fire, the anthill gets destroyed, and we've got a forest fire. But right to the end, until he left, that was kind of.
That wasn't, wasn't fired because of poor results, he was fired because of like sexual
Kevin
harassment.
was paid more than anybody in Kublis's group, including Maurice Levy and Archer.
But didn't he have some scandal that?
No, he said a stupid thing in an interview
Yeah.
about, I'm sick and tired of hearing about the women issue. That timing, some people think that he was deliberately getting out of Publicis at that time because of the way his retirement bonus was calculated. Couldn't quit, got fired. I mean, he got a massive ban, despite that stupid remark. And you think that, I mean, he's smarter than to have made a remark like that in these times when sensitivities and realities are coming to light. But that's what he did. Now, let me go back to pricing. There is no industry price for an agency that they are aware of because they don't know how much work they're doing. But I've been working since 1992, and I have kept track of how big the scopes of work are, how many workload units that represents, what the fees are, and I've just tracked the pricing of my clients over 25 years. And these are TV equivalents, okay, in size. So Ogilvy, and these are in today's dollars. Ogilvy, 1992, $435,000 in, I think, 2015 dollars for a TV equivalent. 2015, 139,000. Today, I think it's 125,000. Now, the people that work in agencies are not machine tools. They, there's a certain level of productivity increase that you can expect with the changes in media type. But nothing like this. This is a real decline of price of 63% in the time I've been in business. And of course, this is uncontrolled because the client is dictating the fee and the workload just happens randomly. There's not a process. There are no constraints on it. It isn't even written down. I have to reconstruct these scopes of work, and I look at Word documents, I look at PowerPoints, Excel, cocktail napkins, email exchanges. It takes weeks to reconstruct the scope of work for 10 clients in an agency office. 6 to 8 weeks, because nobody has it. And there's no agency way of keeping track. So they don't have any control over pricing, but this is a very dramatic price decline. And in order, like if you've got a price going down, well, your costs have to go down at the same rate if you're going to maintain a margin. So what they've done, because their pricing is doing that, is they're downsizing to deliver profits. Relative to the work, they're downsizing. And the creatives almost had to triple their output per head from these days to today. And now I believe agencies are underpaid by about 30% for the work they do, and they're understaffed by about 30% in order to do a quality job. I can't prove that quality is a problem, except that the relationships are down to 2 to 3 years now. Just a revolving door. So the downsizing, they get rid of senior people. They get rid of the high proportion of client service and planning people they have. And they maintain junior people to whom they don't give salary raises or...
That goes back to what you said, when they hired years ago, when we started in the industry, there was strong mentor programs where you had senior creative people, writers, art, working with the juniors that put out a lot of the work that doesn't exist anymore.
Now, it's kind of, everybody's on their own. The creatives are a pool of people. Who's free today? We've got to do, we've got to get some stuff out the door. Because the high volume of work dictates, now they can't even assign except in the largest clients. It can't even assign dedicated resources. It's become a pool of people, and they have to be now good at, it's like the typing room. And they're doing little crappy things.
What sort of entrepreneurship is there at the general manager level of an office? Is there the freedom to, or the incentive in terms of bonuses to make your office more profitable by managing the business better?
I'll tell you what, the office heads have to deliver profits with the finance directors, but they are completely handcuffed by the contracts that they've got, and the fact that a lot of the remuneration is from global clients that somebody else negotiated, or client relationships that they've had, and they do not control the workload. Now the other thing is, let's say you're an office and you've got 10 client heads, you've got 10 clients. Those client heads don't report to the office head. There is no accountability. The office head is responsible for balancing the cost against the actual realized income at the end of the year. That's why they do fourth quarter downsizings. But they don't know what work is going on in any client. They have no idea what the work is, or what its nature is, or how much there is. The only person who knows that is the client head. And they do not want transparency because they're giving away a huge amount of work to hang on to the client. Hanging on to the client becomes the most important thing you can do, because the holding company and the agency cannot allow losses due to incompetence. So there's a complete lack of accountability within this system. Ogilvy's got 450 offices. If they had just 10 client heads in each office, they'd have 4,500 individual profit centers about whom they know nothing. So the office head doesn't know what's going on. And the client heads are not accountable to anyone because they're not measured. And if you move up the chain from the office to the regional director, the CEO, there's a complete lack of knowledge. So what do? Their job, office head, CEO, get new clients to replace the ones we just lost, because we cannot suffer a decline in income. Now, this is a terrible situation. Yeah.
Where are the clients then moving their money to? If they don't
Other
spend it
agencies.
this- No, but if they don't spend it with the agencies, where are they spending their
Oh no, they're delivering it to the bottom line. They're delivering it to the bottom line. You know, P&G, that 750 million, that's going to go to the bottom line.
There's no alternative?
They're also pulling things in-house, too.
Well, that too. They're investing in internal
They're
agencies.
building-
Nobody said that's
but-
sort of
Especially in a
money.
data-driven environment where they want control over ad tech, they want control over MarTech, the CMO getting savvy on data for the first time in their lives. You know,
So they invested in infrastructure in
they want analytics people, they want,
Yeah,
I mean,
see, they've kind of given up.
Okay.
They're saying, we're not getting.
we're gonna have to build it ourselves
We
and
gotta
get
do it
what we
ourselves.
want. And they're going direct to the consumer.
And
Okay.
so there's an ANA conference in April in Hollywood, Florida, called the Financial Management Conference.
Yeah.
It's all procurement people. And big item on the agenda, the internal agency. That's the flavor of the week. And they're all doing
Let's see if it delivers.
So if you look at, you got that declining price curve, and then for equal size scopes of work, agencies used to have the 3, 4, and 5 teams of senior people that were really good and maybe a little arrogant, but they could do their job in TV, radio, print. And today you've got junior people cranking out social and digital Facebook posts, hundreds of them a year. And they're underpaid. I mean, they're bringing them in at $30,000 to $35,000 a year. The consultants are high, and they won't have any meetings. I just saw a statistic yesterday that said last year the consulting firms hiring right out of business school MBAs, and I'm not talking Harvard, Stanford, across the board, over 6 figures. So there's a huge difference. And the consulting firms get a 5 times multiple on salaries when they're charging fees. The agency's getting a 2 or a 2.2 on severely depressed.
Originally 3, right?
Originally 3, but it's 2.2 now. That gives it about a 10% margin. So the game of advertising, honestly, is sloppy work done cheap, and it doesn't work, and everybody's hanging on.
So the consultants doing, in your opinion, different work? I mean, are they doing the same work, they're just charging a lot more?
I'll tell you, the basic thing that consultants do is, first of all, they sell very high in the organization. Second thing is they're saying, all companies underperform their full potential. All companies can be better. We will identify where your starting point is today and how much better you can be. Whatever it is, it could be your high cost, you need cost reduction. Or you're unpenetrated in Europe or Asia. We will help you identify and acquire and integrate. Or in advertising, your brands aren't growing. We have the analysts that can figure out where you are, how much better you can be, and then we have the execution capability to do it. They're not selling that execution capability separately. It's part of the package. So they're more likely to get better fees.
Years ago, it's actually Accenture and modern consulting companies owe a lot of their success now to Gary Steibel doing the consulting. So that's, when he came out of Glendenning, that's what he did. He sold strategy and said, we'll create for you. And he hired lots of senior creative teams, and whichever one won the first.
It's a great business because, you know,
He did a
the
great job.
value that you can create if you grow a huge company by, you know, a couple percentage points, so outweighs the exorbitant fees. I mean, you know, Bain won't do anything for less than $500,000 a month for a couple people. $1.5 million makes in half a month. It's just, it's unbelievable. But, you know, I'll show you, they're pretty confident about what they deliver. So, if this is like baseball and there's a game that involves different players, I'd say the industry is losing. Everybody's a loser right now. And yet, because of their own mythology, they're continuing on the same path. Clients are cutting costs and spend. Agencies are cutting costs and downsizing. The results are not being generated. Repeat the cycle. So I think this is the game of advertising. Media will continue to shift to digital and social. You know, in fact, that I showed you the 14,750 deliverables. Only 26% of their work was digital. So there's still more to go. Creative agencies do high volumes of executions, and the fees will continue to decline, and the agencies will continue to downsize. And they will continue to shed what they've got left of senior, experienced people. And with less strategy, which is what's happening, the client brand problems are not addressed. And the client brand is underperformed, and the clients cut costs, which is the cycle we're in right now. And then they invest in internal agency operations. Now, this is, look, I only observe this because I've been doing this for a long time, and I can't get my agency clients to change. I've only asked one thing of them, and that is have a policy that for every client we serve, in every office, we have a uniformed way of gathering and measuring scopes of work and using it for fee-setting purposes. That's all I've ever said a CEO needs to do. Just like you have a standard accounting system, a standard expense report, how about a standard scope of work documentation? Not a single agency has one. Not even in a single office. So what they do is every client in an office uses whatever the client dictates. And therefore nobody within an agency can even look at it. So I think this is been very frustrating for me as a consultant because I never had this experience of being at BCG. Usually you go to an industrial or retail or wholesaling CEO and show them a terrible situation. They say, okay, what are we going to do about it? And these guys say, you're right. It's tough. But we don't have any money.
Did any of those clients have business models were basically based on acquisition and consolidation? which is what the holding companies do. I mean, the holding companies never existed before there was consolidation.
I'd say most industrial companies, I mean, at least in the time that I was doing this, was, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, et cetera. They had a combination of optimize what they owned and acquire where they needed to move. Like I worked with Dun & Bradstreet for 10 years. They were mainly a U.S. operation, credit services, it's, you know, all those data businesses. They needed to grow their earnings at 18%, and they had businesses that grew at 5%. So Duke Drake said, the CEO said, you know, we need to be able to grow at 18% real, because pretty soon we're going to run out of, and our share price will collapse if we can't continue to grow. So they had to significantly expand overseas. That they did through acquisition, but in the meantime, in the States, you had to do cost reduction, optimization. They owned a bunch of TV networks, and they thought that that business was peaking in the 80s, so they sold them all. There were a lot of things. It wasn't just acquisition, a lot of optimization. But these folks now are so under the gun of the underperforming holding companies that they can't even think. It's like the finance director. He said, I would get rid of half of our revenue and half of our activities and focus on the stuff where we can be viable, where we have competitive advantage. But I cannot do it because I cannot give up $1 of revenue because of the holding.
So Michael, to his point, if that may ultimately be the direction if this trend continues. And then you have the continuing emergence of the hot agencies focused on creative, whether it's 17th, Sunday, Christian, that whole ilk. Is there a model that you see emerging over time?
Yes. I think either the consultants are going to dominate because these folks don't need, or after the holding company breakup, which I predict, the agencies will say, we are going to be like Bain with media and creative capabilities. In other words, we're going to be in the business telling clients that our mission is to get the brands growing. We'll figure out what needs to be done. We will do the media and the creative. They'll be like consulting firms with the capability, but of course, that's what Accenture, Deloitte, PwC, IBM are doing today.
But are they doing that creative?
Yes, oh yes.
They are?
Yes, absolutely.
And they're getting that type of
They have been,
talent?
Deloitte and Accenture have been the biggest acquirers of advertising agencies in the last 3 years. They've outstripped any of the holding companies.
Why did Martin not buy the Accenture or Deloitte?
Martin can't buy Accenture. They're 5 times as big as he is. Accenture, apparently, I'm told, although he denies it, that he initiated discussions, and they would look at that portfolio and say, well, you know, there's probably only certain things we want to keep. You've got, I don't know how many thousands of businesses, so they'd have to, in order for Accenture to buy a WPP, they would have to say, this is worth that, this is worth this is all we want to keep, we'll sell the rest. Well, what's the value of that stuff and who are the buyers? And that didn't go. It's too big a mess.
The single brand is really why those Deloitte, Accenture, it's a single brand.
It's a single brand.
And you know, the holding companies went the opposite way.
Not only that, but because I know from my consulting background, we didn't keep profits by office. I ran Munich, Paris, and London for Bain. I had no idea what my P&L was because it didn't matter. I knew what my client P&L was. And so we kept our books on the basis of, we were a portfolio of clients. How did each client do? It didn't matter where the client was located. So if I was doing strategy work for Google, the computer company in France, and I had case teams in the US and in Japan and in Germany, you know, I didn't book, you know, I booked those people on my overall, but I didn't send money to those offices to pay for that. That's just not how it works. But the holding company model is every business that they buy, that entity remains the profit center. So the offices fight with each other. They can't cooperate with each other because each of them has a P&L that they have to generate.
internet.
So, I mean, now this is what's interesting. I've been saying for a long time, cookie has to crumble. And I got an email, I don't normally read the FT every day, but I got an email from a friend that said, did you see Monday's Financial Times? Hedge funds amass big bets against the world's leading advertiser. $3 billion of hedge fund money has shorted the holding company shares as of Monday.
Which mean all five?
Huh?
That means all five big holding companies, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, they mentioned Publicis, WPP, Omnicom, Interpublic Group. I don't know about Dentsu or NBC, but I mean, there's big money, and particularly betting against him. Big money is betting against WPP. They've had the biggest share decline, which is 30%. So I asked a finance director who runs a part of an agency that is in this holding company. I said, how was your 2018 budgeting? And he said, more ruthless than ever. I said, do you think Martin's got a plan B? He said, no. You're being squeezed even harder, and there's nothing left to squeeze. We're already half the size. So, you know, buckle your seatbelts. I think we're at I can't see what will turn these things around at this point.
Is
It's
this
really
good
late.
news? Is this good news for agencies that are independent and outside the holding companies? Is
It
this
should
their
be.
opportunity?
It should be, although they pay the price of the industry pricing. Like procurement says, what are your blended rate salaries, what's your overhead rate, what profit margin do you expect? Because that's how they do it with these guys. So the independent agencies can get squeezed.
just don't have
And
to
what
answer.
they have to do is position themselves differently and say, look, we're not an advertising agency, we're a brand improvement firm. They have to pivot in the direction of being like an Accenture or Deloitte on a smaller scale. So I'm frankly not very optimistic about the outcome because it's late. It's really late in the game. And it would take a couple of years to even implement a scope of work management system and then to start renegotiating fees. But if I were Martin, knowing everything, you know, or any of the others, Michael Roth, John Wren, I'd make an announcement that henceforth, on all new clients, we will only negotiate fees on the basis of workloads. I'd make sort of an industry statement. I think others would fall in line. I don't think others would say, well, great, that's an opportunity to undercut. Because I think it would be a good thing to do. And then start to implement that. Because if workloads are growing, fees should be growing too. Maybe not even at the same rate. But they're only missing their targets by 1 or 2% here, and Wall Street's punishing them for that. There's a lot more potential growth from proper fee management than the 1 or 2%.
There has to be a pushback against procurement executives. They can't treat advertising as if it's a subcontractor or manufacturer.
Exactly, and so they
what they're doing.
need to reinstate relationships with the CMO.
Correct.
Because procurement's undermining the CMO performance too. But the whole system is kind of broken down. Anyway, it'll be very interesting to watch. I don't know if I'll make any money consulting, although I have, interestingly enough, I'm working in Mexico, and these guys totally get it. I mean, the Mexican Trade Association, the Forays of Mexico, is encouraging every agency to start documenting scopes of work. They've taken the license on my technology to do it. They're signing up agencies like crazy.
I was curious
Acme
if
is
the
doing a big-
forays in the United States, are they receptive to this message?
Not at all.